Boom. And we are live. Well, not
Yay.
exactly. Well, we're live for the Discord people. We are on tape delay for YouTube. So, welcome everyone to Friday Night Rights. I am Brian Scala, the author of Sports, Spice, and Second Chances. And as always, I'm with the lovely Evie Black and the amazing Samantha Moran. Evie is also amazing, by the way. And also, our special guest of honor this evening is amazing. She is the author of the Silver Locket Series. She is the one-stop shop for pirate romantasy. Please, you know her and you love her. Here she is, Kennedy Sutton.
That's me.
So it's great to see you. It's a tremendous honor, of course.
Thank you. I got with Sam about getting on Friday Night Rights, and I was like, "When can you have me on?" And she was like, "How about 5.5 months from now?" And I was like, "You're gonna have to remind me when to show up."
Right. Yeah, I think we're booked throughout the rest of the year now.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, we
awesome.
didn't know that was going to happen, but we're quite happy to have you on. We actually met Kennedy through Sinful Signings and on TikTok before everything went kind of haywire over there. And so we've been friends with Kennedy for a while, and she writes astounding books and a book that made me cry. Okay, and I don't, and I was yelling at her the whole time. So if you haven't read Kennedy's stuff yet, you need to check it out. But yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Yes.
having me. I had to learn how to use Discord just for y'all, and here I am.
Well, we're glad you're here. So we're gonna run through our intros very briefly because it's about you, not about us. But oh, I gotta fix this grid for a second. Yes, I am Brian Scala. Sports Spice and Second Chances is my bag, baby. I am an award-winning author, and I wrote this one. Which you know what? I didn't figure out why my camera is inverted and yours are not. I didn't I didn't check that part. But anyway, yes, it's yeah. I wrote this one, which people seem to love. It's very spicy. Friends with Benefits entree, side of trauma, sweet glass. Love to watch it all down. This is the book that got me an award. This is the 2025 recommended read as per author shout. Baseball, broken dreams, found family, and a love to fix it all. This is Eddie the Legend. Your copy does not come with this strip, by the way. And being made, rise and fall rock star, basketball player redemption story, the original second chance romance, if you will. And very briefly, I want to mention something since we are on Discord. Oh wait, well, since we're on YouTube, I'm gonna have to cover this up for a moment. Uh, I just put these on my website now for $5. Um, if you buy something from my website that is also worth $5, you get this for free. And the same thing goes for my tumblers, which are $20 a piece. If you buy something $20 value or more, you get the tumbler too. Just wanted to put that out there, and that's my shtick for tonight. And let's see who's next.
I guess I can go next since Sam knows I don't like going after her. Hi, I'm Evie Black. This is Morticia. I write paranormal romances. Unbalanced is if Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing, and Supernatural had an angsty slow burn baby, angels, demons, force proximity, all the good stuff. Leona, she's a badass with thick thighs who ends lives, and Xandros is the simp that calls her abuse foreplay. This one's Bear Shifters, Reverse Bully, Grumpy Sunshine. And Abyssal, Donovan's a dick. It's in the blurb. This one's Shadow Daddy, Witches, New Powers, Student Teacher Trope, and a horrible, horrible abusive relationship.
Thanks.
Now it's Sam's turn.
What a great story, and I know that because I edited it. Anyway, hi, Samantha Moran, also award-winning author. We're supposed to tell people it doesn't count. I write supernatural horror, thriller, and fantasy, spooky, spice, and nothing nice. So, this is the Cursed Souls series, two-time award-winning novella, which is Demons, Hellhounds, A Deal Gone Wrong, and 48 Hours to Save Your Soul. Feelings in the Dark is available on Audible now, too. Bound and Betrayed, which is the sequel to that one, Selena's story, Schizophrenia versus Demonic Possession, also on Audible. This is The Spooky Spice, Wicked Little Rabbit, which is Alice in Wonderland reimagining erotic horror psych thriller. Check your triggers. The list is as long as my 4-hour minute. Your health is more important than my sales. The Ruin is an award-winning medical thriller and urban fantasy book about a woman who's trying to save her mom from cancer, fighting the medical system and paying for mistakes her ancestors made with the Norse deity. Without You is like the TV show The Ghost Whisperer, love, loss, and life after someone is gone. And then this is the one everybody's talking about right now, my shiny foil cover, Apothecary of Curiosities, which is cozy horror and dark fantasy. I call it dark whimsy. The Grim Reaper settled down, opened an apothecary, and is getting in trouble because who's going to tell Death that she can't? So that comes out on March 31st, a collection of 6 short stories. And that is why Evie refuses to go after me, because I do this every day, all day long, and she gets all silly about it. That's me. My whole thing is Happily Ever After is overrated. You will not find it in my books. So just go in with that in mind. And now we go over to Kennedy, who's going to tell us about their amazing work and what they write about.
Okay, 1 second. Let me go grab my pile of books. It's a lot of books.
I was going to say, I've got most of them sitting right here if you need them.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Okay.
there they are.
It's so many books.
I'm so glad I went before she did. I was like bummed when I have to follow Samantha. I would hate to follow you.
Okay, so this 8-book. Whoa, my desk shifted and now I'm losing my phone. Okay, there we go. I'm a professional. This 8-book monstrosity is the Silver Locket books. It's a complete pirate romantasy that begins with The Sneaky Lass. It's about a prostitute in a port town named Jane who, in a bid to change her lot in life, unalives a young customer, steals his clothes, and jumps aboard a pirate brig in disguise as a young man named Dixon Abels, who catches the attention of the pansexual pirate captain Bennett Holt, who doesn't know Dixon is Jane. So that's a complete series. It's, let's see, pansexual MMC, trauma recovery, found family, forced proximity, and it does have a happy ending. You just have to get all the way to like the final 3 chapters of this one to get to it. And for those who have read The Sneaky Lass, this is Villains Like Me, which I've been calling the 8th book, but really it's book 1.5, and that's The Sneaky Lass from Bennett's point of view, which everybody's been very happy to read. I have this series, which is my MM Pirate Romance trilogy. It begins with A Glorious Mess. It is about Hugh Digby, who, after a long stint at sea in the Navy, returns home, immediately falls into bed with Mickey Compton, and they part ways thinking they'll never see one another again. And then Hugh goes home to his mother's house for dinner, and who is sitting at the dinner table but Mickey Compton, who is married to Hugh Digby's sister. So this is my Grumpy Sunshine, Forbidden Romance, Mutiny and Piratical Adventure ensue complete trilogy. And then I have The Heart of the Thicket, which is a standalone, not a romance, this is a standalone portal fantasy set right here in Middle Tennessee. It is about a mother and her young daughter, Odell and her young daughter Anne, who venture into the Tennessee woods one day and fall into a magical realm called the Thicket, where Odell has to venture to the center of the woods to barter with the keeper of the thicket for her daughter's soul. Yay, that's it.
Also very Alice in Wonderland-y.
Yeah,
like,
very Alice in Wonderland, Labyrinth movie vibes, Over the Garden Wall, if anybody's ever seen that. So, my beautiful sprayed edge sets are available on my Etsy shop.
I was going to say, we have to talk about these for a minute because I picked these up from Kennedy at Sinful Signings. Look at this. Okay.
I also have this version of the trilogy.
Girl, I'm going to have to own everything you have in triplicate. I have doubles of a lot of things.
Yes, I do all those sprayed edges myself. They're also all available on audiobook. I'm working through the Silver Locket books now. So I am kind of I don't want to say jack of all trades because then the next line is master of none, but I do a whole lot of things and I like to think I do them very well.
And I have listened to quite a bit of your your narration, I listened to The Sneaky Lass, and I'm listening. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through Feathers Like Me, or
Ooh, Feathers at Sea.
Feather. What the hell am I thinking? Feathers.
The last book is Villains Like Me, so you're
yes. And
I'm working up the nerve.
Let's see from time to time. It's okay.
I'm working up the nerve to pick up Feathers at Sea because I'm going to have to contact Kennedy at about 30,000 intervals as I read through this book and yell at her like I did when I read the first one, Sneaky Lass, because I knew she was going to do it.
Literally my favorite part of anybody reading my books. So yeah, message away.
But I have to put the brick wall up again because Kennedy doesn't just leave them
I'm going to break
alone
it down.
piece by piece. But you did mention beautiful sprayed edges, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be giving away to members in the audience tonight as well.
1 second.
And by the way, thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yes. And your
Sorry,
first
I
was
underneath a 3-year-old until like the very last second, so I'm like not prepared at all. My giveaway item is a complete trilogy of Silver Locket Origins. I really feel like we need to be talking as much about queer books and queer spaces as humanly possible at this point in American history. And so I've chosen the beautiful Pride Sprayed Edge edition for our giveaway tonight.
That is beautiful.
I told you were going to want to be here. I told you were. Look at those. They're so pretty, and I might be jealous. That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to be happy that you get to adopt those and they go to a good home. It's going to be fine. I'm going to tell myself. You don't by any
chance have a second copy of those, do you?
I do. They're on my bookshelf.
Oh. Well, I'm going to have
It's all right, Brian. I'm putting all of her links, her Etsy shop and everything. In the chat.
I'm gonna have to check that out either tonight or tomorrow.
Yes, especially if you want the Pride ones. You just, I always tell people, if you know me, you can always message me. I'll do personal sets. The reason the new set with these anchors exists is because a reader of mine messaged and was like, I want a set of the books, but I want you to design something special for them, and I'm willing to pay you extra to do that. And I was like,
wow,
yeah, let's do it. And so that's how this came to exist.
You have a question in the comments. I believe I know the answer, but I'm going to clarify with you. What are your pronouns? Because they have changed a little bit.
I don't have pronouns. A lot of people choose to use they, them for me just because when people ask, I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's like my Achilles heel question. You can use any pronouns. I answer to all of them. I consider myself genderqueer, but I don't identify with any pronouns very strongly. So I prefer not to be perceived at all. But if you are going to perceive me, I answer to all the pronouns. I like Captain Kennedy Sutton. Good choice. Pretty boy. You'll get like special coupon codes from me if you call me that. Good girl. Love it. Bad girl. Whatever. I'm in.
Good to know. Good to know about those last two. I knew about Pretty Boy.
Don't get started, mistress. All right. Calm down.
I have pictures climbing Kennedy Sutton like a tree from Sinful Signings, okay?
I'm a little bit jealous. I'm the second prettiest boy here tonight.
The other pretty boy's in the living room.
Oh, sorry. The third. Excuse me.
All right, so for tonight, we can say giveaway on here now. So if you would like to be the proud owner of the Pride Edition set of the complete trilogy, the Silver Locket Origins series, your giveaway, as we used to have to say, your giveaway emoji is a pirate flag. And if you can't find that, I think we'd probably be okay with a skull and crossbones. Okay. Anything piratey, drop it in there. And that's right.
Worst comes to worst, just write the word pirate.
Yes. Anyway, that's going to be your emoji queue. Yep, you can go ahead and drop those in there. You've already got all these people like, I want it. They're adding it to the chat already. And then we're going to record those on the wheel, and we're going to get started with a little bit more about who is Kennedy Sutton. So, Brian, if you want to take us into that part.
Sure.
Yeah, Evie sent me the list of questions, and I went, I'm just going to wing it. And
Well, Uh, question one: Who is Kennedy Sutton?
Well, that's vague. Um,
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit?
Kennedy Sutton. uh, but like as an author, or like as a 32-year-old mother of two small children of different varieties of neurodivergence. Uh, the
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the now only child. I lost my brother to suicide when he was 22, and I was 21. I was 20. Let's see. I'm in recovery from an eating disorder that almost killed me time and time again. I have obsessive compulsive disorder that is now well controlled by medication, but that's still something that is a part of my everyday life. I'm a big advocate for mental health. I raise thousands of dollars every year for the Monroe Carroll Jr.'s Pediatric Hospital by Vanderbilt here in Nashville, because they saved my daughter when she had a brain tumor the size of my fist. And that is what the Heart of the Thicket is all about, despite not mentioning brain tumors once. If you ever want to know more about that and the emotions that went into that. And I'm also a huge, it's hard to even express with words just how much of a nerd I am about the golden age of piracy, tall ships, sailing ships, really anything nautical, and history in general. So all of my books have a note of history attached to them, whether they're romantasy, fantasy. I always have a historical backdrop to that and something that I'm basing it on, because that's usually where I find my inspiration, is in old graveyards and in churches, in folk songs, and that's where, and textbooks. Most of the Silver Locket books, it was something that I read in a textbook, and I went, I could write a book like this, and here we are.
You also happen to live in Appalachia, which is a great source of inspiration for anything like that.
I really love it here. I've lived almost in every corner of the United States at this point. I haven't spent much time in the East Coast except visiting. So I haven't been to New York, except to pop in. I went to New York once to pop in on the last show of Barnum and Bailey's Three Winged Circus, when they were still a touring circus. And so that was the only time I went, because I drove all the way from my house in Houston up to New York. I'm also a huge circus fan. And would love to write a book set in a historical circus setting one of these days. I was born in Texas, moved to Wyoming, and spent most of my formative years there. Moved back to Texas after my brother died, and then we kind of accidentally ended up in Tennessee. And I think this is where I'm planted. I really love it here.
It's very nice. I've been to Nashville a few times over the years, and I'd love to go back. And subsequently, if you ever do make it to New York, let me know.
Absolutely. My editor lives just right outside of Rochester, too. So I feel like I have people I need to go and see in New York.
And Michigan.
Yes. Just hop over.
I would say come here, but like no one wants to be in Oklahoma. So if you're like, I'm not visiting you, I understand.
I spent 4 years growing up in Oklahoma. So I went Texas, Oklahoma, Wyoming. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I was too little to like know anything about Oklahoma. But you know,
there's nothing to know.
Yeah.
Well, you're there, so that's one reason to go to Oklahoma.
Not by choice, okay.
There used to be a great Chinese food place in Norman. I'd love to go back.
You know, I have to drive an hour and a half to get to Norman. I'm like an hour and a half from OKC, and then like 30 minutes from Texas. Yeah, there's nothing here.
I was in Little Axe. If you know where Little Axe.
No, look. If it's not the bigger cities, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just like if I say, "Hey, I'm in Lawton," people will be like, "Where the fuck's that?" I don't know. So, Captain.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were, a little grunt. What do they call? We call them in the Army. We call them grunts. When they're privates. What do they call on ships? Like the cabin people. Yeah. So what did you know you wanted to be an author, or was there something else that you wanted to do when you were little?
Growing up, I thought I was going to be on Broadway. I used to sing, and I sang professionally for several years. I've traveled all over the world singing with different select choirs, and as a soloist. And I was very musically inclined. I played piano, violin, harp, and I took all these voice lessons. I taught voice lessons, and I thought I was going to be on the stage. And then around my senior year of high school, I now know that what it was burnout. I was like, if I ever have to sing in another choir ever again, I'm going to run into the woods and never come out. And so I actually went to the University of Wyoming for art, thinking that I was going to become an art teacher. And then about 2 semesters away from having my degree in art education, my brother killed himself, and I stopped doing that, and I dropped out of that school. I went to Texas, and I got an associate's degree. I always called it just like, I was just going through the motions at that point. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Kind of in this like gray span of what now? So I got this associate's degree. I went on and I started a teaching degree, and then I taught teeny tiny humans just long enough to realize that that wasn't what I wanted to do at all. So I taught kindergarten, and then I was like, maybe older kids, and I went to 2nd grade. And then I realized that it wasn't the kids. The kids were great. It was just teaching in general. And so I stopped teaching, and I had my own children. And now while I was staying at home with my own children, was when I started kind of coming up with these stories that I wanted to write. And it turned out I had a whole bunch of stories that I wanted to write, and I wrote all of them down. And after I finished writing the 7th book in the Silver Locket books, I very suddenly thought, you know what, I could publish. And my husband was like, where is this coming from? And I was like, no, I have to publish these right now. And within the span of a week, I had an editor lined up, and I was trying to do this huge learning curve that you do when you become an indie author. And that's what I ended up doing.
Huge learning curve is an absolutely accurate way to describe this career, because it's one of those things where you never know what you don't know until you're like, oh shit, I don't know that at all.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Everything now, right? Because I've already made a mistake, or someone else did it, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
You do have a question. Did you consider querying at all?
I queried the Sneaky Last once. And I actually was, I don't know if it actually is querying. I submitted the manuscript during an open call to one of the big 5. And there was this thing that they were doing, and it was literally that same week. And I was like, oh, well, these guys are accepting books. Let's see what happens. And I sent in my book, and they wanted to make it, more YA. They wanted me to take out all of the child loss, trauma that Jane has gone through, wanted me to age down the MCs and make Bennett a little sexier and darker and growlier. And I was like, okay, well, and by that point, by the time they got back to me, I had been self-published for months and had sold thousands of copies. And so I was just kind of like, that's okay. I don't want to take traditional publishing off the table. I think that if the right thing came along, or if I wrote the right book, just by happenstance, if I was like, you know what, this seems to be meeting all of the genre expectations, which never happens in my work, but it could happen someday, I would totally query. I think that sounds great. But I didn't really consider it. I don't have much patience, so it never really occurred to me. I also, because I mostly took in gay media, I was reading queer books and had been for years. I already knew a lot of indie authors. And I knew that that world existed. I knew that it was possible to be successful. And so I was like, well, I mean, if Jacqueline Osborne can write books and make a living doing this, then so can I. If Adrian Wilder can write these books that I love so much and make a living, then so can I. And so, you know, it was like, yeah, I know how to do this. I know people do this. So it never really occurred to me to try to avoid that route, I guess.
Now, you kind of already told us when you started knowing that you wanted to become an author, but there is an origin story that involves a sea shanty and a child, correct? You want to tell us about that?
Well, my son, my first baby, was a miserable infant, and he really just he had colic, and my breast milk made him super fussy, and he never slept. He didn't sleep longer than 90 minutes at a time for like the first year of his life, and we were just awake all the time. And the only way he would sleep for the first 6 months of his life was upright on me on my chest. And and of course, like, I have to stay awake. He's on my chest. It's like not considered safe sleep practices for me to sleep while he's sleeping. And so I would sit in the rocking chair in his room in the middle of the night, and I would sing him gentle songs that I knew from my music background. And a whole lot of those were folk songs and sea shanties. And it was while rocking him in the middle of the night in this delirium of sleep deprivation that I started coming up with this whole ship of people who would have been singing those songs. And that's how I wanted to start writing pirates.
Which is a really cool origin story. So my microphone wouldn't unmute on me, but I was trying to be all respectful and like be silent on my end. It was confusing me. Anyway, which is a really cool origin story, and I relate to that one so much because about half or more of Bound and Betrayed was written on my cell phone while rocking my son because he had horrible reflux. And for the first 6 months of his life, he would not nap anywhere but on my chest in the rocking chair, and it was driving me insane. Like, literally insane. And then I also asked that question because I know that you wrote a story that was kind of similar to that experience for, I believe, the Sinful Sightings anthology last year, right?
Yeah.
That was fascinating to read about.
My short story for the Sinful Sightings anthology last year was set in the world of The Heart of the Thicket, and it was about this mother who finally gets her children to sleep, and her inner monologue the entire time is just like, go the heck to bed. Go the heck to bed. I have to get out of this room. I have to get out of this room right now. Like, and she gets the child into bed. Like, oh, good night, my darling, beloved child. And she backs out of the room, and then she just leaves. And she leaves the house, and she walks into the woods and meets Time himself, and spends what feels like years as a dove sitting on Time's shoulder, and then comes back to her home. And she's back to rocking her son. And she tries to put him down, and he wakes up. And she puts him back on her chest. And it's right back to that exhaustion. And yeah, definitely motherhood influences my work quite a bit.
But it's incredibly relatable to any mom who does pick up your books. You can feel it in the Sneaky Laughs as well. There's so much in there about motherhood and lost motherhood. There's The Heart of the Thicket, which is literally about losing yourself to save your child. You have this one with Time from the anthology that's about how hard it is to stay when every part of you is just so done and wants to run away, and the guilt that comes with that. And there are a lot of emotions with being a mom that nobody talks about, right? And so that is part of what I love about Kennedy's stories. It's the same thing I tell Brian. There's something unique about a Brian Scala story. There's something unique about an Evie Black story, but like there's also something incredibly unique about a Kennedy Sutton story. And so if you haven't had a chance to read these, I highly recommend them. I know Evie's been dropping links in the chat here so you can find Kennedy's books online. They are worth every second and every penny, so please make sure you check them out. And especially if you'd like complete series, because you have one that you can just totally binge from beginning to end. So
yes. And if you're low on cash and you want to read them in exchange for a review, you can hit me up anywhere, and I will gladly do that for you.
Yeah, most indie authors will help you out with that, and Kennedy might like to write about pirates, but we don't support pirates, so reach out to your authors, please, because a lot of us will beg, borrow, and not steal for reviews. So.
Excellent point there.
I mean, I might steal for a review.
Shh, we're not supposed to advertise that.
This is Discord. We can do whatever the hell we want. So
And that's freeing.
yeah. So obviously you're between your multitude of books and all of your many talents. I mean, I almost I almost feel silly asking you this question, but do you have any hobbies?
This is my hobby. Tea is a hobby of mine. Very much into different tea blends, loose leaf tea. I have the Heart of the Thicket has a tea blend with a bookish tea shop called Petals Tea Shop, and they're a small business set in South Carolina, I think, maybe North Carolina. I always get them confused, but it's run by a wonderful woman, and she makes tea blends based on books. Both traditionally published books and indie books, and also on tropes. So she has like a tea blend called Grumpy Sunshine, and different things like that. And that's the tea shop that sort of got me into tea. So I've become a little bit of a tea snob, in that I'm like, oh, these particular leaves come from such and such, and they brew best at 163 degrees for about 2.5. So I would say tea. I used to paint a lot, but I really just don't have much time now. But that definitely serves me in the bookish world, where like people would ask me at events, is it hard to spray your own books? And I kept saying, no, it's really easy. And then as I was talking about it, I was like, I guess it's really easy for me because I have an art degree, and it's actually not easy.
Yeah, and if you have graphic design questions, every once in a while you can just send Kennedy a message and be like, how do these colors look next to each other?
Like, from a color theory standpoint.
I think I've done that about 10 times. I'm like, hey, Kennedy, busy.
Art, history, really a lot of the things that are my hobbies sort of tie into books, and that just happened naturally because my books are very much related to what I'm interested in. So even now I'm looking at my wall, which is, you guys can't see it, but right behind you at my desk is like a painting of pirates approaching a galleon and a lone man lighting his pipe on a horse. I have fairies in a tree reaching for a woman. Like I find lots of inspiration everywhere. I think that's one of my favorite things to do, is just look at beauty and come up with stories to tell about it.
Yeah, a lot of us. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, you have a comment as well that mentioned that you collect uranium glass. That's an interest of yours.
I do collect uranium glass. Another one of my little interests. Back in the day, they used to put uranium into glass to make this sort of green tinted glass and also milky glass. And so I collect different glass figurines that shine under UV lights and emit radiation. Very small amounts. It's safe. It's just kind of fun.
So, do any of your characters, do uranium glass or drink? Are they tea aficionados? Or because a lot of times we either purposely or inadvertently put little pieces of us in our books. Would that be true of you?
None of my hobbies. I think part of that's just because my characters aren't from a world that we inhabit, and often are in places where that wouldn't really make sense. But I definitely put pieces of myself into my characters. I would say that Jane gets my no-nonsense fighting spirit, in that, like, she's going to put up with a lot until she won't anymore, and then she's going to turn your head into a canoe. And I gave Bennett Holt struggle with addiction. His struggle with alcohol very much mirrors my struggle with food and eating disorders from my past. Mickey Compton got that beautiful, trusting part of me, the part of me that just wants everybody to be as kind and as good as I am. And I gave Hugh Digby the just shielded off person that I was before my brother died, really, and then went through years of therapy and was able to come out on the other side of that being a lot more empathetic and understanding of human beings, a lot less judgmental, just in general. And of course, Odell in The Heart of the Thicket. got a lot of how it felt. Odell is as close to a self-insert as I've ever written, in that though her daughter doesn't have a brain tumor and she wasn't in the ICU, she goes into this place and just gets lost in, I have to save her, I have to save her, I have to save her. And if it means you don't sleep, you don't sleep. If it means you don't eat, you don't eat, and you will do whatever it takes. And that desperation definitely went into Odell. And so just yeah, I feel like each of my characters get pieces of me, though they don't often get like direct pieces. They get, it's almost like an understanding. Each person sort of gets an understanding that I've developed over time, something that I like or dislike about myself. And it's completely accidental. It's just something you note afterward and you go, oh, yeah, that's kind of how I would respond.
Gotcha.
Yeah, or how 15-year-old me would respond, or how whoever it was.
I was gonna say, I heard your voice as Adele when I was reading Heart of the Thicket, because I knew what you had gone through when everything with your daughter happened, and it was like you were literally the one wandering through the book, and I didn't see that necessarily when I was reading The Sneaky Last, so I can definitely tell that that's a lot closer to a self-insert. But I think it was a really cool peek behind the curtain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. The Heart of the Thicket poured out of me very quickly. And I tend to write very quickly when I'm in drafting mode, but The Heart of the Thicket really, Rosie was in the ICU for several weeks, and then she had a second brain surgery, and it just kind of went on and on for months, with appointments and follow-ups and scans. And then kind of as soon as I had a moment of quiet, I wrote that entire book. It took about 6 days. And I made very few changes. Like all the chapters remained exactly as they were written. My editor moved them around, but it all very much spilled out of me and remained pretty much unchecked in that the emotion that I put into it. And it wasn't until I was writing the ending and just sort of sobbing at how that happened, how the ending flowed. And it was my first, not to give anything away, but it was my first happy ending. It was the first time I ever wrote a book where it was like, and then the story's over. Now, there's not a sequel, there's not another one, there's no what happened after, the story's over now. And I got to the end and I just like was weeping. And every time I read it, I cry. And I'm just like, oh crap. It's like, oh, and the Thicket's the ICU and I'm Odell and here we all are.
Yeah, it's kind of like the anthology is going to do that to a lot of people writing these stories. Evie and Brian and I have all talked about it for See Me As I Am, how hard it is to pour something like that out onto paper.
Yes.
Yeah, I told Sam during drafting I had to keep stopping because I was re-traumatizing myself. And then while she was editing it, I had to reread it and go through it. And as soon as we were done, like done, I was like, good, now I never have to look at this thing again. Because during editing, I was crying. When you get those stories that are even changing things to fit a fantasy setting, if it's too close to home, you feel it.
Yeah. Similar experience. I wrote the first chapter, and I realized it was hitting very close to home. In fact, like the whole story is very close to home.
My button refuses to push. Yeah, the one I'm submitting for the anthology also was much one of those things where I would like start and stop because I had to be in a safe headspace for it, because mine was about suicidal ideation. And so when you really delve that deeply into something, it can take away those pieces of you that you think you've healed. And it's kind of fascinating, but also morbid watching that happen. And one of the things we talk about often on Friday Night Writes is that writing also heals too. Like you have to go through those things to pour something like that out on the page. I know when I was writing it's called Forever My Shadow, my anthology piece. I know when I was writing that, I kept asking them, like, is this super immature? Is this bad? Because it was so raw that I couldn't tell if it was any good. You know, it hurt that much that I couldn't put any distance between myself and the story. And that is incredibly difficult. So it's really cool that you were able to do an entire novel that was that raw. Like, mad props, because I know how many times we read through something like that before it goes out to the world, and I know how traumatic it is just to release that huge of a piece of yourself to the world as well. Like, I'm like, whew, okay.
I really enjoy, and always have really enjoyed, I call it sitting with the sad, or touching the sad. And that shows in my books. I really love those moments in all media where something really just hurts, and it hurts in a physical, raw way. And I've definitely dug into my own pain to write scenes like that. But also, I've always been attracted to sad stories, and still am in a lot of ways. Abandoned houses, and and what they could be, or you know, I've always been attracted to children's graves, for example. What could they have gone on to do? Who loved them? Who left flowers for them? Who carved that little lamb? And I always see sad stories as almost like unfinished stories. And oftentimes when we have something tragic happen to us, or in our books happen to our characters, those stories never fully resolve. They just become a part of the fabric, and we build around them. And so I've always found, like, you know, a perfect example is when I was very small, I became obsessed with the story of Exodus. And I just, like, got kind of trapped in that. And I don't come from a religious background. My mom was horrified that her 6-year-old daughter was like, tell me the story of Exodus again, mommy. Like, but that was why I was attracted to Greek mythology. It's why I became attracted to ships. I really enjoy, I've been doing a lot of research on the Civil War, going to battlefields, and just that heavy feeling. I really draw a lot of inspiration from that. And so The Heart of the Thicket, writing it was hard. Revisiting it is hard. There are certainly aspects of the Silver Locket books that are much the same, especially in regard to child loss, is what I was really sorting out during that series. But yeah, I really find a lot of beauty in delving that deep into the hard stuff. And so I'm writing a piece for y'all's anthology, and I really enjoy it. I'm about halfway through it because I had to narrate a whole audiobook in the meantime, but I'm opening that up again today after sending something to my editor. So I'm really excited to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of that one.
Yes, and we're happy to
So
have it.
I've oh, sorry, Brian.
No. I'm good.
Okay.
Sometimes it's hard to tell who's going to talk because Discord goes down just a little bit. But I think Brian was just saying we're happy to have her in the anthology.
Oh, yeah. I thought he had like a follow-on thought or question, and I was going to wait. Sorry.
No.
It's just like I'll hit the button and then I wait.
Sometimes I just try to break the silence. That's all.
You don't want to sit in sad silence with me? We could just stare at each other.
No. That's not what I meant. I meant, like, you know, sometimes there's like a 3-second delay. I come from radio, and dead air is death. Dead air is the worst thing, you know. So it's like it's that, you know, I go back to college radio. If there's like, you know, one Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, say something, you know. So,
see, I wait. I do the same thing because I don't want to talk over anyone. So I wait. Okay, no one's saying anything, and then I go to unmute, and then I say, and then that's when you guys, I'm like, ah.
My ADD just goes, oh, say the thing.
No, I've been sitting here because I've been wanting to say the thing, but I'm just like, no, other people are talking. You can wait your turn, and then by the time it's my turn, And by the time it's my turn, I'm like, what was I gonna say? We've skipped. We're on to a new subject. I can't say it anymore. So I just sit here. I'm like, oh yeah. Anyway, you talked about you've mentioned it a few times so far on the live, but you brought it up specifically in the beginning when you were talking about who you are, about the hospital that you raise money for every year because they helped your little. Did you want to expand on that, or maybe any other projects or causes that you fundraise for?
Well, my primary one is the Monroe Carroll Jr.'s Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt. I always say that we sort of moved to Tennessee by accident. I used to say that to people because people would ask, oh, well, what brought you to Tennessee? And it was really just that we wanted to get out of Texas. We knew we didn't want to stay in Houston. We didn't like the traffic. We didn't like the heat. And we didn't like how ugly it was. Like, no offense to Houston. It has its beautiful things, but it's a big city on a big flat piece of swamp. And we wanted to go somewhere beautiful. But then we came to Tennessee by accident. My husband is in the medical field. He can work anywhere. My dad got offered a job in Nashville. And so they were moving to Nashville. I was like, let's follow my folks. And so we ended up in the countryside outside of Nashville quite a ways. But I used to tell people we came here by accident. And now when we were at Vanderbilt, I kept saying, don't know why this would happen. I've always been a person who believed that things happen for a reason, and I can't think of a single reason why this would happen to our baby. And it was my husband, who is not spiritual at all, and I'm quite spiritual. And my husband was the one who said, maybe it needed to happen now. Maybe, like, we can't have answers for everything, but maybe it needed to happen so that we would be at this hospital with this surgeon who can save her. And I firmly believe that she had the best team in the whole world. And they do amazing work. We didn't have a single nurse who wasn't completely on top of their job. We had so much support coming in and helping us. My husband had just started his job. We didn't have insurance yet. It was a really hectic time. And then, like, they just covered it. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars of ICU bills. And they're like, we have a fund for that. Please don't worry about that. They do amazing work saving children every single day, from just about everything that you can think of. And they have the best surgeons in the world as far as I'm concerned. So I do a lot of fundraising for them. They are a nonprofit organization. So they have a donation page right on their website, and it's really easy to donate. You can donate through PayPal. And then I also do a lot of work with the Trevor Project, especially around Pride Month, because I am a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I write queer stories, and I always have. I have a lot of queer friends. So I definitely do a lot of donations to them as well, because I think that they do a lot of good work. Recently, I ran a fundraiser for the Neighbor to Neighbor Fund, which was raising money for those affected in Appalachia from the hurricanes this last autumn, which is an ongoing effort. So those are my big causes.
And that's awesome. I was gonna say, and I held on to this thought. I was able to hang on to this one. Sometimes the universe just has your back. You don't realize. I'm not a spiritual person, but I do believe that if, karma, you ask the universe for help, it'll help, and I think the universe just had your back at that point.
Yeah, I believe that too, because we knew that something was going on, and then suddenly it happened as soon as we moved here, and we took her in, and they were like, well, and nobody said this, but the idea behind it was kind of like, lucky you, the one surgeon in the world who is a pediatric brain surgeon who specializes in these specific giant rare tumors is right down the road. We'll take you to him, and it just worked out that way. So many people have to travel there, and they were like, well, where are you from? And it's like, we're from right here.
It's always fun when you can be like, I'm from here,
I think
or I'm from here, you know, whatever.
Tennessee is a little
you
bit
just
more
tell
like
people.
this, not.
Yeah. Tennessee has the we are from west, middle, or east, and so
Yes.
it's like we're in Middle Tennessee.
The town with the post office that only has this many mailboxes.
Yeah, like the world's smallest post office. When I moved here, I was like, wow, there are a lot of chickens out front. Do you guys have PO boxes? And they're like, sorta. They're outside. Is that okay?
So we've heard a lot about Kennedy, like you as an author and you as a mom, but a little bit of something about you as a person we like to ask, you know? So like a few of Kennedy's favorite things, not necessarily just the things you collect, but like foods you enjoy or favorite places to visit or seasons or the song that gets stuck in your head and repeat, right? Like what are some of Kennedy's favorite things?
Well, I always end up with a lot of songs stuck in my head. I have a huge playlist. I listen to it every day when I take my son to school, and it's not a short drive. But it's almost always some kind of folk song or shanty. This, like today, all day long, I've been singing this one called Little Lies, I Love You, and it just like goes on and on as, you know, these kind of men waxing poetic about this woman that they saw in a park. And I really enjoy time where I can just drive and listen to my music and sing it very loudly. I love Dr. Pepper, specifically Dr. Pepper Zero, and I haven't started my day until I've cracked one open and drank it. Even my kids, who are very small still, are like, Mom's still having her Dr. Pepper, so we're going to like chill out. We can't do anything until she's had it. I also really enjoy talking to my friends. I have about, you know, a couple people on all the time speed dial that I message back and forth with, or I send TikToks to. And, you know, I guess I enjoy good food, bar food, not like fancy food, but like if you give me a salty, bready pretzel and like a beer cheese to dip it in, I'm there. A breakfast burrito with nothing weird in it, like bacon, egg, cheese, potatoes. I really enjoy food where it's just like, my son always takes me to Waffle House before we go to speech therapy. And so I pick him up from school, we go across the street to the Waffle House, and they just give you this bowl of like greasy potatoes with eggs and cheese on top of it. It's like a Velveeta slice, and it's just like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. I'm just simple pleasures, and I try to find simple pleasures in my day just in general. Kirsha Fox is someone I message with regularly, and she gets a message from me almost every single morning, and it's always like the first thing will be about the weather. It's like, it's a really overcast day today, super cold, 9 degrees, and then I tell her whatever beautiful thing I noticed on my way to wherever I was going. So it's like, but every single leaf has a perfect shield of glass on top of it. Or, but there were 6 vultures on top of the little Baptist church in the woods. Or, you know, and so I try to notice those little things and just not only brighten my own day with them, but brighten other people's days with them. And that's, I guess, one of my favorite things to do. And those are some of my things.
I just want to point this out really quick because a lot of people in the comments are like, Kennedy needs to be the next award-winning something or saint of something. I said, that's why they're the captain, for sure. Like, they run the whole shit. But, I dedicated one of the short stories in here to Brian, to Evie, and to Kennedy, the people that are in this live with me today. And I wanted to tell you what the dedication was for Kennedy in this story because it really just captures who they are. And it says, for Kennedy, my friend and fellow author who can see the beauty in everyone and everything, even in the darkness. That is exactly what you are talking about. I know that there's a lot of feelings going on right now with the state of the world. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty, and a lot of us are burying ourselves in projects and speaking out when we can and then hiding when we can't handle anything else. Kennedy is helping me get through that. These two are helping me get through that. But they really do see the beauty in everything. Like, I can be having the worst day ever and be like, oh, Kennedy. And then they're like, yeah, what about this, though? Right?
My husband says my catchphrase is, but on the bright side. Do you guys want to hear my bright side about the state of the world?
Sure.
Is there a bright side?
I really brightened my psychiatrist day the other day because I was telling her about how so many people are having a really hard time and I'm having a hard time, but like I'm getting through it. And she was like, well, what are you doing to get through it? And when I feel really glum about the state of our world right now, I think about all the people who live in places that we consider like bad places, right? Bleak places, places with dangerous governments, or they're war torn, or whatever the case may be. And I think about the people who are just going about their lives. And I think about the things that are not going to change in my life, just like they don't change if you're living under a fascist regime, or if you're living under a dictatorship, or if you are living in a war-torn country. Like, you still have to go grocery shopping. You still get in your car and you take your kids to school. You just, like, you get on with it. And I try to think about those things when I feel really bleak, because it's like, but there are also mothers right now all over the world who are just going about their day, and I'm going to do my very best to keep going about my day. And because sometimes that's all you can do, and when people ask me for help, I'm going to help them, and that's what I can offer. And I'm going to keep writing my stories, and I'm going to keep sharing my stories for as long as I'm allowed to write them and share them. And I'm going to focus on those people who are just going about their day, because I'm going to keep doing my thing.
You know, there's a saying, be the change you want to see in this world, and I think you have succeeded in that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, I know I've had 5 or 6 people now reach out to me and be like, are you going to stop speaking out about these issues? Are you going to stop writing what you write about because of the issues that we face? And I know Kennedy is of the same mind. Like, first off, we don't obey in advance, because then we lose access to all of the things that we care about. We say it's okay for those things to go away. But second off, the big question is, are you going to stop and protect yourself? There's no protecting ourselves at this point. It's already out there. People know who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so backing down from who we are really only harms ourselves and the people that are associated with us. And so I think it's really important that you're talking about, like, hey, we're just going to keep going, right? Because obeying in advance is probably one of the worst things that we can do.
Yeah. And it's tempting.
It is. It's very tempting, especially with young children.
Yep. It's tempting when somebody says, are you going to unpublish your queer stories
Right.
since it's happened? And it's like, I mean, I will if somebody tells me I have to, because I'm going to protect the people that I can protect as long as I possibly can, but I'm not going to do it in advance.
No.
And not like I'm not already on the list.
Oh, we're all on the list somewhere. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna keep going. And maybe that's very privileged of me to say, but I'm just going to keep going for as long as I can.
It is, but you're also showing people that they can do it too, especially young people, the people that we're raising, the people that they associate with, and that's how you make a difference in the world. There's been a lot of conversations about how if you want to change the nation, you change the youth. That's been weaponized in the past in a lot of different places. So we don't even have to get into that. All you got to do is crack a history book and you can see it. But if you want to change the world, change the youth can be extended to a positive worldview as well. And so when you do that, you set an example for changing the youth into what we know they should be too. And I think because you have talked about so much how you're a mom as well, that's such an important thing to see. And I am very proud of you for that too.
Thank you.
I was going to say something, but I was listening to Sam and I got derailed again.
If it comes back to you, you can change the subject. It's okay.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just completely, unless it's a question.
By the way, we were talking 15 minutes ago about.
Right, that thing in that one place.
No, speaking out, that was it. Interrupting, speaking out is, and you said, you know, that I guess it's privilege, but we kind of have to, you know, not to get too political, because we're supposed to be talking about your books, which are political, but, you know, having the, you know, what privileges we do have, we have to, while we still can, say something, do something. So then that way we're hopefully extending what rights we do have now, you know, until hopefully the certain people are no longer in office. And,
Yeah,
And there's always
you
going to
never
be
know.
someone.
You never know who's watching and who's going to be inspired by you. It's like I wouldn't have found you if it weren't for Sam saying something about your story, or I think it was last year you had or 2 years ago you had a health episode of your own, and I didn't know you from a hole in the wall, but you know, so you never know who, so somebody might name drop you and you're like, oh, who's that person, and then you find out, and then, but
Yeah, and that whole connection extends both ways too, as the other question somebody has asked. So this is an interesting thing to pose to Kennedy as well. I think I know the answer already, but someone said, aren't you afraid you're going to lose sales, you're going to lose readers? And my response to that was, if I lose those people, I didn't have them in the first place because they didn't know who I am and what my books were about, right? I feel like you're probably in the same camp.
I don't feel like anyone could read. I used to not feel like anybody could read my books and be on the conservative side of the spectrum. I no longer feel that way. I don't really worry about my sales, though. And I think that's because I really do try to be understanding of all people. And that's not just, I was thinking about this just today. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually, and I think a lot of us have been. But I spend a lot of time driving in my car thinking, and I was thinking today about the idea of you are who you vote for. And I think that that's something that we're talking about a lot these days. And honestly, I've always lived in small conservative towns. I've lived in a couple big conservative cities. I've always kind of kept a group of weird liberal neurodivergents around myself. That's who is attracted to me and who I attract, and always have, even as a small child. But I know so many people who I know to be good, and I feel like they've become confused or they've been misled. But I still believe that those people are good people. And I feel like it's important now more than ever, almost, that we try to understand that there are people who have been misled, and that I try to be kind and understanding of those people. If that message, that I really want people to keep reading my books, because I feel like if somebody is filled with something hateful or dangerous, that they might read my books and learn from it. Or they might read my books and go, wow, I really want to get to know Kennedy Sutton. And then they find my group or they find my page and they see my views and they think, well, how could somebody who I think is evil write this? And so I try to keep those doors open. If I lose sales, I lose sales. But I try really hard to make sure that people know on my socials and know in my posts that I don't hate anybody.
Right.
And I try really hard not to. And I really do believe that most of the people in this country are good people who would never hurt anyone. And that's another thing that I try to focus on. Mm-hmm. That every yard in my neighborhood has a Trump sign in it. But I know that most of them are really good people. They're nice people. They would buy you a gallon of gas if you were out of it on the side of the road. They would help you replace your tire. If you got locked out of your house, they would let you come in and use their phone. They are good, kind people. And I just hope that, I don't know, I hope I'm spreading that message. And
I think you are.
Yeah, so if they don't read my books or if they unfollow me or whatever the case may be, I understand. And I'm not angry about it. I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, like, I'm not going to stop saying it to avoid that fate.
Right.
So, I think those are the people whose doors are already closed. That's the thing. Those are the people who wouldn't really feel Kennedy Sutton the way.
Yeah, most people probably weren't going to enjoy my books anyway.
Right.
You know, I've had a couple really mean reviews on my queerer books, especially my series, and I'm always just kind of like, yeah. Uh, but generally, yeah, their door is closed. Their door is closed. If they unfollow me, they unfollow me. But I do want to just make it clear to everybody that, like, I'm not spreading any hate here, and
No.
I just hope that no, I just hope that we do better. I hope that we continue to do better. I hope that more people become empathetic, and I hope that we find more kindness for one another just in general. And that's not in like a, oh, I don't want to get political way. It's just in a, I don't know, I guess I'm just trying to remember that there are good people everywhere, and there's so anyway, that's kind of a long-winded, weird way of saying that no, if I lose followers, I lose followers, but also I hope that they don't unfollow just because of my political views, and that maybe they were able to find some common ground, even if the common ground is just I like pirate stories.
Yeah.
And maybe if we both like pirate stories, then we can find more things in common, and then maybe there will be just a little bit less meanness.
Yeah, I think that's probably how most of us feel, you know, like we have to do what's right, even if it does cost us, but we really don't want you to go anywhere. Like, stick around, work together, learn something. That's what Friday Night Rights is, you know, it's a whole community. That's what we're trying to build here, but you still have to be authentic. And that's the important part. People know when you're not. And we've talked about that a lot here on Friday Night Rights. People know when you put up a shield or, you know, pretend to be someone else. And I think that authenticity, like I said, is what draws people to your stories. And you really do see the darkness, the brightness in the dark places. So yeah, even if people don't feel the same way you do, I do hope they read your books. There's a lot to learn in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I tend to avoid posting about politics, not because I'm afraid of losing followers, but because the vitriol that can be spewed in those comment sections really affects my mental health. And so I really try to protect my peace in that way. So when I'm particularly protecting my peace, people will notice that it's just like, I write pirate romantasy. Here's a video and a post about it. See ya. And then I just disappear for several days.
All right, you guys, you know what time it is. It's time for another giveaway announcement. And I can say giveaway because fuck TikTok and their censorship. Right?
Yeah.
So, Teriyaki's already in the comments with the pirate flag. So if you would like a chance to win this set of beautifully sprayed-edged books, go ahead and drop us a pirate flag or skull and crossbones, and I will add you onto our wheel of names, and we will draw at the end of the interview.
Yes. And if you don't win and you want to own some, they are for sale at my Etsy shop, and Evie's been dropping those links.
All right, so while they're doing that, I'm going to move on to the next question. And we already know what genres you currently write in. I know you're exploring lots of genres in your time as an author because you go where the heart is.
Yes.
But how many total books do you currently have? Because I have lost count.
Me too. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 are published. And then I currently have one with the editor. I have 4 written in my next series that are going to be edited this year while I try to finish the series, and then I'm rapid releasing them in 2026 and 2027. I think there's going to be at least 6 of them, but I'm not sure yet. I have a novella started. I have 4 different short story anthologies that I'm working on within the Silver Locket world, and I'm hoping to get those out this year. I'm narrating 4 more audiobooks this year, and I'm hoping to write at least 1 standalone this year. That is probably going to be historical romance, but I don't know that for sure.
Now, do you have a favorite book
that I've written? I think it has to be A Woman's Wail. It's actually the one I'm narrating right now. Let me dig it out. 1 second. From my big old pile of books over here. Here we go. This one's A Woman's Wail. This is book 5 in the Silver Locket books. And that one, our 2 main characters, our love interests that we follow through that entire series, Bennett and Jane, are separated literally in the entire book. And until the very end. And you see their dual points of view as they both sort of battle different things. And that book was the hardest one to write. It was the hardest one to edit. And I put just so much of my grief and my journey. Becoming a mother was not easy for me, as we had to do IVF. We had several losses. And I put a lot of that into that book. And writing it, I remember telling my friend Kirsha that I didn't want to ever read it ever again. I didn't want to ever read it ever again. I didn't want to write it anymore. My editor kept messaging me and just saying the word more, give it more, make it hurt more, talk more about this. And that was the one time where there's one chapter in particular, chapter 24, where I just felt like I was just pulling chunks off myself and putting it on the page, just smearing blood all over the page, to make that hurt as much as I wanted it to hurt. And when I published it, I just felt like I was throwing it out into the world and then being like, okay, well, I'm done with that. But now, reading it again, narrating it, and crying my way through those chapters. And I've sent those chapters, once I've edited them, to a couple of my listeners, and they're like, gosh, it just sounds like you're weeping with Jane. And I'm like sobbing in my closet studio, like, yeah, good, that's Hollywood, baby. But it's been really nice to read that again and see what a good job I did. I've had people reach out to me specifically about that book, about how we don't talk about pregnancy loss. We don't talk about infertility. It's something that is kept quiet and secret and shameful. And I have it right in the front of that book on the content warning. And it's like, there is a whole chapter in here that you don't need to read. Chapter 24 is just telling you what you already know in painful, explicit detail. And if you're not ready to go to that place, if you're not ready to really feel what a miscarriage feels like, then you just want to skip chapter 24 and go right to 25, and you're not going to change the book, except that you're not going to touch the sad quite as much as you would otherwise. But I remember putting it in there and thinking, gosh, is this the right thing to do? Are people going to hate this book? Is this going to be the thing that makes it so that nobody reads the last 2 books in this series? And not only wasn't that, but I'm really proud that I stayed true to Jane's story. I stayed true to the stories of the 2 and 5 women in the world who struggle with infertility and child loss, and just really dug down deep and touched that, because they deserve those stories, and Jane deserved to have that story told, and I deserved to have that story told. And it felt really hard to do at the time, but it felt so good to read it again and be like, yeah, that was the right decision. And no traditional publishing house would have let me do it. So just definitely A Woman's Wail. I always tell people, I'm like, I don't have a favorite book. Looks fondly at A Woman's Wail.
Like having a favorite child.
Well, so that kind of goes into the next question. In all your books, do you have a favorite character, or a least favorite character?
Hugh Digby is my favorite character. He is my surly pirate quartermaster who only loves people grudgingly. And anybody who reads the first 3 books hates his guts. And I feel like everybody who reads the whole series loves him as much as I do. And not only do I feel like that is a triumph in how I've written him, but my editor always gets on me about writing Hugh because I shy away from writing him because I'm ashamed of the worst parts of Hugh because they are the worst parts of a past version of me. They're a very closed off person who wanted to protect themselves, even if it meant hurting everybody around them. And I feel like Hugh not only gets past that through a lot of learned difficult experiences, but also through the love of a lot of patient people who had a lot of patience with him. And I feel like he's definitely my favorite. Least favorite, aside from villains who are just terrible, because I've had villains I liked. I think my least favorite character to write is Zachary. My least favorite character to write is Zachary Cosper. He first appears in book 3 very briefly, and then we see him again in book 5 and the remainder of the series. And I loved what a sweet Labrador puppy he was. The only reason he's not dead is because it would have been too convenient to kill him. And so I had to figure out a way to keep him alive and also make him interesting, even though it was like, your purpose in the story is done, but I can't just kill you because you're here now. I don't like killing people for no good reason, and I don't feel like because you're done having an important role is a good reason. So I felt like I needed to put him in the background while also give him an ending since he was still around and a named main character. I found that very frustrating, and I still find it frustrating. I feel like that tainted his entire character because even the parts that I used to love him in, I'm like, ugh. So
you don't KO people just because they need to be KO'd because they're no longer relevant. You do it to rip our hearts out and do a tap dance on them.
Yeah, well, that's not why I do it, but it is a nice perk. I feel like if it won't hurt, then what's the point? So I definitely, yeah. I really tried. There are characters that pass in my books that I tried so hard to make live, and then people are like, you're tap dancing on my broken heart. And I'm like, I have an entire version of the next book where they're alive, just to see if I could make it work, and it didn't work. Like, I promise it wasn't just a tap dance. The fact that I'm enjoying your thing. Yeah, like the fact that I like touching your pain too is just a benefit of my job.
Some of these characters have to die, and that's something that I've argued with people about before as well, because a specific parental figure does not escape in one of my books that someone really, really wants to have escape. And I wrote like 4 or 5 chapters that were different in the book as well, and they just felt wrong. Like, that person survived, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I had a whole conversation with this person, like they were a real human being sitting next to me, and I was like, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do to you. I hope you can forgive me. I don't mean it. But it's wrong, you know? Sometimes you really have to do it.
Yeah, you know, the Silver Locket books, and I've had people mention a few things about the Silver Locket books that admittedly I would do differently if I were writing it today, but I wasn't. I was writing it 4 years ago. And that means that I wasn't the author I am today. I didn't know as much about the genre I was writing in as I do today. But there are some things where it's like, well, I really want Bennett's point of view through this entire story. And it's like, the book's not about Bennett. The book's about Jane. And the book's not even really about their romance. Like, some parts of it are, but it's really like, it's a pirate romance, but it's also a pirate adventure. It's a woman coming of age story. It's coming into yourself. It's trauma recovery. And some of the books are just about Jane, and you don't get to get Bennett's point of view. And that was my thinking when I wrote it. And it's just like, yeah, you don't like it. You don't like it. That's okay. He can get some short stories, and you can partake in Bennett's point of view that way. But like, sometimes you just have to write it the way it's supposed to be written, and sometimes folks die. And sometimes they live frustratingly, like Zachary Cosper. He went on to have probably the happiest ending of everybody. Lucky bastard.
I can just feel the passion in your voice, the way you explain everything, your everything about writing. I mean, you just what do you? So I'm just wondering, what do you enjoy the most about it? If and conversely, what do you enjoy the least?
My least favorite part of writing is writing. Um, the drafting. I really hate writing first drafts. I really rebel in writing second drafts. So getting the story on paper, making the characters exist, making them breathe, giving the world a map, and taking them to places on it is just grudging to me. And that's why I do it so quick. People think I do it quick because I'm like on fire with passion. And really, I'm just like passionate about having the first draft completed. Like I will just set a timer for 2 hours and I will do nothing but write for 2 hours, and then I'll have 5,000 new words. And it's like, well, those might all be garbage, but at least they exist. And it's that second draft that I really love. The part where I read through it very slowly on my computer, and every time I think, ooh, but what does that feel like in their body? And I add it in. Like, oh, it says frustrated. Instead of saying frustrated, what does frustration feel like? What does frustration look like? And those little details are what I really love to do. And also just, it's usually in the final draft that I'm still sitting there going, ooh, and how could I make this feel more? And then I just like sprinkle in these little details that nobody, not even my editor, gets to see before I toss them out into the world. And yeah, so my least part about writing is writing the first draft and making the book exist. And my favorite part about writing is when it's like, ooh, this is getting really good. Followed only by the part of writing where I publish it. And then I don't have to work on it anymore for a while, because there's a part right before publishing it where I'm like, this is the worst book in the whole world and nobody's gonna like it, and I'm a garbage author and I should give up and never write ever again. And then I'm just like, have a book, and then a whole bunch of people like it, and I don't have to do that anymore to myself.
Okay, so never mind us, because behind the scenes, we're over here going, she answered that, they answered that. Like, we're going to rearrange these questions, so that's why we're looking off screen, so don't panic, it's okay. But that is absolutely how it feels to publish a book.
It's my fault. I'm recording this, I have something else here, and I have this here, and this is all like...
I feel like I do that to everyone who interviews me.
Honestly, I think it's Kennedy's fault, because normally we ask these questions in order, but she's just over here. She was like, I know this is the first question, but I'm going to answer 10 questions down, and then I'm going to add additional information. So 3 more of your questions, fuck them.
It's excellent. I love it. No,
it's all, yeah, this is,
It is amazing, but we're over here like, yeah, no, don't ask that one.
And I can't communicate with everybody on the screen because I'm supposed to be recording the darn screen. So we're all learning something new here, and we're trying to, it's all, and
I'm a really good interviewee.
You are. You're an awesome interviewer. I'm a terrible interviewer.
So good. We're just not going to ask questions.
Just let me talk.
Seriously, though, we are having a really great time, but that's why we're looking over here. We're like, shit, move that one. Shit, okay, this one's Brian now, because he was reading off of the paper. So yeah, it was kind of, we're like, hey, don't ask that one.
And you know how I'm a little, oh, we're changing this now? Like, no, we can't change that now. It's like that whole neurospicy thing. It's your chest is like boom, 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 boom. No.
You have the opposite neurospicy of me. I'm like, let's just chat.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I do love chatting, but it's like, it's not on the list.
But it's going really well, so this is not a complaint in any way on our part. We're just trying to regroup.
It's my fault. I take the blame.
When it's on YouTube.
I take the blame here.
Because we are paying attention, and I know we're all looking over here going, okay, and I don't want you to think we're not, but we are. But like I said, we are having a wonderful time, and it's been really great getting to know you, and like you're doing such a great job explaining all of these things in a way that's so relatable, just like you do in your books. And so I really appreciate that. Friday Night Writes is just always organized chaos. It's fine. Anyway.
I do want to say you are making all of us a little insecure because we're over here in our private Friday Night Writes chat while we're talking about which questions to skip and everything. We're also like, she's so awesome and we suck.
That was primarily me.
Here's the thing that some of you guys don't know is that, like, I've been friends with Kennedy for a while now, since before she had a medical issue, and then there was the thing with Rosie and like the whole thing. But I, for a long time, was accidentally, subtly competing with Kennedy, trying to make sure that I put out books like a rapid release author, right? Because Kennedy was so amazing, and I was obsessed with how well they write, and I was so excited. And then I was like, I can't do this. I can't even put out one a year anymore. I think I'm drowning over here. And Kennedy's like, yeah, nobody can do this without having an impact on their mental health. And so, like, talked me off of the ledge several times as an author.
My goal was to have...
So this is not new.
my goal, and this is kind of ironic, because my goal was to have one book out every year. And here Samantha is telling me, it's okay if you don't have a new book. It's sinful this year, and I'm, it's like, and I'm like, well, Kennedy's going to have 5 new books this year, probably. No, but I know, I'm not that I'm comparing myself to you. Obviously, I can't do that.
I am, and I am finding myself lacking. All right, I'm just letting you know. And I'm very transparent about that. Like, my self-esteem is always down here anyway, and you just, like, dropped it down just a little bit more.
I always feel bad when I post about that sort of thing on TikTok, because people have a lot of comments like that. And really, they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I have a crippling anxiety disorder, an obsessive compulsive disorder, and autism. Like, yes. Like every aspect of my life has been negatively impacted except for my writing and maybe motherhood, because I have to put that first. But like, sometimes my husband's like, so I haven't seen you in a week. And and I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm focusing. I didn't sleep enough. Last year, I went on medication to help control my obsessive compulsive disorder, and suddenly I didn't have to write 5,000 words a day anymore, and I could like breathe again. And I was like, I don't think I need to publish 5 books this year. And everybody in my life was like, are you okay? And I was like, never better.
Well, that leads us into our next question, actually, which is kind of funny, because we're over here fucking restructuring everything to try to figure out what we're going to ask you next.
I don't have any new questions.
The next question on the list is, are you a plotter, a plantser, or a pantser? And I'm going to restructure that a little bit, because I know what I already know about you, and I know that you publish kind of on a cycle. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your cycle instead?
So this year I'm not publishing on the cycle, just to be clear. This year I'm getting back on cycle. But for the last 2.5 years, I've been publishing books I already had written. So before I started publishing book 1, I already had the first 7 books written. And I always feel like I need to tell people that, because it's like, I was able to release a book every 3 months because all I was doing was editing them and publishing them. I do not write and publish a book in 3 months. And so I tend to write a book very quickly, as I saw. Draft 1. I write draft 1 very quickly. I think my fastest draft was The Heart of the Thicket. Usually they're around 2 to 3 weeks, 90,000 words, or thereabouts. And then I put that book aside and I don't look at it anymore. I just write it very quickly and then I close it. I put it on the external hard drive, I save it into the cloud, and then I spend a couple of weeks working on a second draft for another book. And so I'll pick up a book that's already a first draft, and I'll pop it on my laptop, and I will go through the entire thing with a fine-tooth comb. I'll rearrange things, I'll change events, I'll change character names. I do all sorts of stuff in the second draft, because the first draft is just making it exist, and the second draft is making it make sense and making it good and making it meaningful. And then once I'm done with the second draft, I usually, when I'm in a publishing year, I get my next release back from the editor. and I go through every single edit and I make all of the changes that I'm supposed to make. And then I print it all out on paper and I read it aloud, and note any problems in ink. And then I go through the document, and then I send it to get a proof of the actual book, and I read it aloud again on paper with a pen, and I find a couple more things. And I've gotten much better at it. I find fewer things now than I did at the beginning. I have a keener eye for such things. But then it starts again. So then I publish that book. I usually take about 4 hours off, and then I write the next book. And so this year I'm sort of doing that, but without the publishing bit. I'm sending books to my editor, and then I do that whole process, and then I'm just tucking it away until I'm ready to publish it and kind of preparing for my next round of rapid release. But this year I'm also focusing a little bit on slowing down and being like, what do I want to work on? Not what I feel like I have to work on, so that it gets out in the right timeline that I set for myself. That, like, I acted like it was a law of the world, of the land, of nature, that I had to get it out in 3 months. And I'm just like, so if I don't follow that law that nobody's enforcing, what do I want to write? And so, but yeah, I definitely work on a 3-month cycle. Pantser or plotter, I'm a little bit of both. It depends on what I'm writing. I've gotten to where I kind of like to have an idea before I start, because otherwise I tend to write the first 20,000 words very quickly, very easily. It's like, yes, 20,000 words. And that's when I realize that I did something that I didn't want to do, or that I did something wrong, or I have a bigger idea for the plot, and now I have to go rewrite those 20,000 words. So I try to have the first 10 chapters or so with an idea plate. Somebody wasn't muted.
Okay, so you have a whole routine for the actual writing and editor, publisher, getting it out there and everything. But do you have a routine for, like, to write? Where is that coming from?
I don't know.
There was a member in here that wasn't muted, so if you look on your list, you can mute them.
Oh. How do I do that?
Gotcha.
I'll mute you.
No.
Yes. Which is a good reminder for everybody who's in the interview. Our pause for just a second. Make sure your cameras and mics are off. It is trial and error, but yeah, that's the thing. We can hear it when it's on Discord.
Yep, I went ahead and muted them. So do you have anything that, like the little things, like, I need my tea, I need my water, I have to have music playing in the background, or
favorite, right? And I usually don't get to, because I have 2 small children. So, like, I write when I can, especially during those rapid drafting weeks. But if I get to have a choice, I like to put on my soundproof headphones. I listen to, like, binaural beats, and, like, ADHD rapid pace beat music with no words in it, because otherwise I just start writing the lyrics.
I love those. They make my brain, like, I usually have too many tabs open, but like I hear those and everything's just quiet, and I'm like, holy shit. Yes. But at the same time, I can also hear, like, the 10 different songs that they've mashed together.
Have you ever heard of brown noise, Evie?
No.
Brown noise? It's like a specific static that's at a certain frequency that helps people with ADHD and autism focus. You can look it up on YouTube. Brown noise.
Me going to try to start using that, because half the time my brain, I'm like, I'm going to write. And then I'm just like, ooh. And then I'm gone.
Yeah, and a Diet Dr. Pepper. So headphones, and then the beats, and a Diet Dr. Pepper. And then I like to have a timer set. That's just me being a high stress individual, though.
Let me see if I can unmute now. So our next question for you is, how many whips do you currently have going?
Oh my gosh. I'm writing the second book in a series that I don't even have like a series name for it yet. It's in a new world, new genre, kind of like alt medieval historical romance. Fantasy romance. It's a fantasy world, but there's no magic in it. But I'm writing the second book to that one. First one's with the editor. I am writing the fourth book in Silver Locket Legacies, which is the book that I'm releasing in 2026 and 27. I have 4 different short story anthologies that I am working on, that are all my stories. I have 3 anthology pieces that are one for you, one for Sinful, and one for Books and Chaos. I have a novella that I'm working on, and 2 standalones that I am mapping out. And I think that's it. So 12.
I have a short story called As Brittle as Bone for the Sinful Signings charity anthology this year. That's my dark reimagining of the Tooth Fairy, which is also inspired by being a mother. So I'm definitely going to have to run it by Kennedy before I send this to the Sinful team. And then I have Legacy of Lies, which Evie has threatened to drive to Michigan and stand behind me until I write this book, because it's still...
At this point, I think she's like, it's like a dare. Like, come on then. Come on, because she's not writing it. I really think this is more just to get me to go see her at this
Maybe
point.
it is. And then I'm working on the second book, The Dark and Depraved, which is the one that follows Wicked Little Rabbit, right? But, like, if I have more than 3 whips at a time, I'm losing my mind. I don't know how you guys do it, because Evie's got 40-something, and you're over here with 12, and Brian's like, I got 2.
Well, they're all different places. So, like, some of them are being mapped, and some of them are, like, short stories that, like, they're usually a sentence in a Word document that's like, write a short story about this. That counts as a work in progress to me. I have a couple things that are just like vague ideas on my phone. I didn't count those. So I don't have a Word document on my desktop. It's not a work in progress. I have 12 documents on my desktop.
Your computer would scare me.
Yeah, it's very organized though.
Yeah, I think I just have the one right now and one idea. So yeah.
I'm also narrating 4 audiobooks this year, so and I need to have them all narrated before summer.
You have to.
Well, I can't narrate in my house during the summertime because the air conditioner, I have to turn it off so the heat will rise. But also there's a fan in our attic that turns on if the fan's at over 110 degrees, and my mic picks it up. And then by the time I've gotten rid of that noise in the background, my voice is distorted. So I have to have them all narrated before it gets hot in like mid-June.
And then I'm adding another short story to your plate, so hashtag sorry, not sorry. Anyway.
I know you guys were like, we're having an anthology, and I was like, how many people do you have for that? And you're like, not enough. I'm like, dang it.
Now I have to write something. I would have said not enough even if we had like 30 to get Kennedy Sutton to write something, I'm not going to lie.
So, obviously, you're with your writing, you're just keep pumping them out, at will. 99% of us get writer's block, and I'm assuming you do too. What do you do when that happens?
I don't get writer's block.
Or not.
Nancy Pamphritch McGee over here.
Sorry, I couldn't hide that on my face. I was like,
Like,
I get to points where I'm like, I don't know what happens next. And then I open up one of my other 12 works in progress and work on that instead.
Sam wants to know how it feels being God's favorite.
I don't know. I always tell people I am a main character. Unfortunately, that means I have lots of luck, both good luck and bad luck. I have like child gets brain tumor luck, and I also have like I don't get writer's block luck, and it just kind of, It varies. Take it as it comes.
I wish I had that problem, though I have found that when I do have writer's block, it does tend to be like I'm not doing the right thing at the right time. Like the reason Legacy doesn't exist is because Corinne's not ready to tell me her story yet. So, yeah, you just write other stuff. Or, because I really just want to bait and switch Evie Black. So.
Okay, so I don't want to say I don't get writer's block now. That feels unfair because Kirsha Fox has been listening to me talk about Silver Locket Legacies, it centers around John Holt, who is just a child in the Silver Locket books. He's like between the ages of 11 and 13 or so. And we meet him again as a 26-year-old. He's the first mate on this merchant ship, and he gets sucked into, main character drama. So he gets his own series. And I wrote the first 3 books in that series, and then I kind of knew what was going to happen next. I wrote vague notes about it in a Word document, and then I haven't opened anything about that series in like 4 months. And every time Kirsha asks me how it's going, I just say things like, I don't know, it'll probably never see the light of day. I'm going to keep working on this. So I don't know if that counts as writer's block, because I was really more just like, I'm done writing this. This is dumb.
Okay, listen, they're in the comments berating me now about not having Legacy of Lies done, so I have to adopt Kennedy Sutton's policy of just not having writer's block and everything will be fine.
Yeah. I would recommend setting a timer and then basing your whole self-worth and the safety of your family on how quickly you can write it.
You know what's funny is I actually kind of did that already.
Do it.
No, I just recently had my evaluation for ADHD, and they are also evaluating me for autism because they think ADHD. It was highly suggested in the paperwork that I got back, but now they have to do the whole thing, right? And the guy's like, "So how do you feel when you don't stick to your routines?" And I was like I'm gonna die. Like there's what? No routine. Don't talk to me. I'm gone.
Yeah, you just start doing this, and then
kind of like what I've been doing off camera.
He goes, "Do you stim?" And I was like, "No, I don't do that."
No, I don't stim. Yeah.
And he's like, "What is this?" And I was like,
"Yeah, I know."
Anyway, yes, I'll have to incorporate that strategy as well. Brian's got another question for you, though.
Okay.
You've mentioned Kirsha Fox quite a bit. Is it safe to say, well, 2-part question, is it safe to say that she has inspired you, and who are some of the others who have inspired you?
Kirsha Fox read A Glorious Mess when it released because she knew about my books, but she didn't really get into them when I released, because I released the first 2 in the Silver Locket books, and then I released A Glorious Mess, and which in hindsight, bad idea, but we live and we learn in indie publishing. And I released A Glorious Mess and told everybody, you don't have to have read the other books in my other series to understand this one. It stands alone. It's in the same world. It centers around these characters that you will meet in that series, but it's its own series. It stands alone. And that made Kirsha want to read it. And she kept slipping into my DMs on TikTok after reading that book and joining my ARC team to review that book. And then I was kind of like, well, it's weird when readers do this. I have no idea what to say to people. And then one day she was like, I'm going to be driving near where you live. And I was like, how do you know where I live? And she was like, I'm going to be driving near where you live. Do you want to meet for lunch? And I was like, well, she's probably not going to kill me or anything. And so I drove into town. We went to the nicest restaurant in town, which is the Olive Garden. And we went to the Olive Garden. And we talked for 4 hours straight about our books and about our passions and about what we love and about our families. And we pretty much talked every single day constantly since then for several years. And I always say, she's my soulmate. We made a wrong turn at some point. We ended up married to these men, and we have all these children. And me and Kirsha were supposed to be But she's my soulmate, and I love her to bits. And she really keeps me going as far as my writing. When I tell her things that I don't tell many other people, because I don't like to get other people down. I don't like to share when I'm down. And I certainly don't get on social media and talk about being down very often. I try to be the upbeat, positive thinking person. And then I go to her and I'm like, I don't know if these books are ever going to be good enough to publish. And she's like, of course they are, and you're going to get there. And, and so she keeps me going. And I'm the one who tells her things like art isn't isn't supposed to be made in stolen moments. You have to sit down and do it. Stop cleaning your kitchen. It will be dirty again tomorrow. You can clean it then. Write something. And I feel like
yes, Samantha. Yes, it's okay that the dining room may or may not be finished, or your office. Just saying. It's okay.
It's okay. And yeah, and so there are definitely people that though I'm a little bit of a loner as far as my writing process. I don't like to send people anything until it is done. I don't like to ask people what do you think of this cover? Because I've already made the cover the way I like it. And if somebody else is like, but what about this? Then I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's garbage and I should just quit. And so I just don't. It's like, do you have beta readers? No, I don't. Do you ask people's opinions on your covers? And it's like, no, I hired an artist, they made something I liked, and I published it. I'm a little bit of a loner, but I definitely have people that I reach out to. I reach out to Samantha a lot. I reach out to Kershaw a lot, and my poor beleaguered husband and my poor beleaguered father, who I just follow around, and I'm like, can I run something by you? And my dad is my biggest cheerleader, and he reads all of my books and routinely compares me to famous authors and thinks that me being an author is really cool. And I don't have a whole lot of people in my real life that do that for me. So he's somebody that I take inspiration into. That he was the first person who he's the one. So the Christmas before I published The Sneaky Lass, I printed it out on paper. And I used that art degree to bind the book for him. And I drew a cover for him of Jane on the cover in pen and ink. And I gave it to him for Christmas, and he read it. And that was the first taste that I had of someone else reading my books, and was the reason that I was like, I could publish. And, so definitely I have a couple people who are inspirations in my life.
I think that's the reason why we really started Friday Night Writes, though, is that the community aspect of all of this is so important, because these guys are my dawn writers. These are the ones that I usually am like, oh, shit, I'm going to set this manuscript on fire, right? And they're like, no, don't do that. And they talk me back from doing that. I talk to you. I talk to my husband. I talk to Marissa, who's in here. She's my number one hype woman, and it's the community that keeps you going, because there are so many moments when you really do want to give up on this journey because of imposter syndrome, or because life is too heavy. And I mean, life gets ultra heavy sometimes.
Which kind of tree falls on your house?
Are you kidding me? A 60-year-old walnut tree. Oh my God. Anyway, that kind of leads us into our next question, which is, do you have any advice for unpublished authors who are hoping to go on this journey?
I think the advice is to not be afraid to reach out to other authors. I always try to let people know in my TikToks, especially, just because that's the platform I'm most on, and most people see me on. But slide in and ask me. I have been the person who has talked 3 different authors through every single step of publishing their own book. From this is the thing you need to download to make it into a manuscript that is for a book. And here is how you work that program. And here is how you become an author on Goodreads. And here is how you make an account with KDP. And here is how you get your copyright. And here is how you buy your ISBNs. And I will absolutely take time out of my day. I will pause everything if somebody says, I really want to publish this book, but I have no idea where to start. I am so happy to be like, all right, let's get you into groups. Let me connect you to people who know things. I really pride myself on being someone who knows people. And so even if somebody's like, where do I print not safe for work art? It's like, I've never had not safe for work art printed, but I know 4 people who have. Let me send every single one of them a message. Exactly. Or people who message me and say, I want to be on a live, I want to be interviewed, but I don't know who to talk to. And I'm like, I have 4 different friends who run podcasts. Let me put you in contact with them. And so that community is so important, and you shouldn't shy away from being a part of it. I used to feel like book events were a club I didn't get invited to, because it was like, I only heard about them as they were happening. And I was like, how do you get a table at a book signing? Because you need to know about them 18 months ahead of time. And how am I supposed to know about them 18 months ahead of time? And people are like, okay. And not only can they give you the resources for finding those things 18 months ahead of time, but the more people you know, the more they tell you. They'll message you. And Sam says, hey, there's a book event in Nashville. Are you going? No? Here's the interest form. I learned about Sinful Signings from another book talker who said, you've got to go to Sinful. It's run by great people. And then you go to Sinful and you meet more people. At every event I've gone to, I've met more wonderful people, and they become a part of your community, even if you don't talk to them very often. And so I am a loner. I don't like to talk to many people, but being a part of the bookish community really changed that. And being an author really changed that, in that even if I don't talk to Brian very often, I know that if I have a question Brian knows the answer to, I can message him and be like, hey, what do you know about fill in the blank? And I think
gatekeeping is for bullies.
Gatekeeping is for bullies. Exactly. It's like, how can you make cheap merch? I can tell you 14 different ways to make bookmarks for 15 cents a piece with different printers and different ways. I can tell you how to spray the edges of books. I will send you a step-by-step video. I can do all of these things. Like, you just ask. And so that is my biggest piece of advice to anybody who wants to get into this business. I got into this business by finding someone who I don't even talk to anymore, but I found her in a book group and she gave off good vibes. And I messaged her on Facebook out of the blue and said, okay, I need a buddy because I really want to learn how to do this, but I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, let me teach you. And I really try to be that person for others, so that, and I feel like a lot of indie authors do. We all kind of latched onto a buddy and went, okay, how do I become an author on Goodreads? What do I post on TikTok? I've never even had a TikTok before. And they're like, okay, here's what you do. Here's how you meet people. Here's who you follow. Here's who you don't follow, and you just have to have, I remember, to become a Goodreads author, she said, the only way I know how to do it is to have this specific link. I saved it in my phone. Let me send it to you. And it was like the magic link. And now I send that to people all the time. I'm like, here is the magic link to the magic form. I don't know how else to get to it.
And it's hard to find, too, to be honest with you.
Very hard to find. Yeah, so I guess don't be afraid to ask people. You might get the first person who's like, how dare you slide into my DMs? But that person's dumb, and you should ask the next person.
All right, guys, you know what time it is?
It's giveaway time.
All right, so go ahead and, Marissa's on top of this. She hears give, and she's like, yes! She probably has that, set up ready to go at a moment's notice. So, drop the pirate flag. I will add you to our wheel of names. And then here, really soon, we're going to be drawing the winner. So,
yes. And just so you know, Kennedy, Marissa was one of your early readers. She was here from the moment when people said you'd never sell 40 copies of Sneaky Last, and she's in the audience today. So just so you know the impact that your books have, people are still here.
Yay!
And then we have a few fun questions too, but we're going to really rapid fire them today, no explanations.
Okay.
So the first one up, which I usually have a huge setup for this question. but fast. What's your favorite dinosaur?
I don't know any dinosaurs.
What?
Barney?
Okay, wait. Maybe this one needs some explanation.
Maybe the one with the very
I am
long
so
neck.
disappointed right now. Like, let's just move on, okay? Like,
Very
you've been
long neck.
so cool all night, and you just ruined it.
What's the dinosaur that Littlefoot is in The Land Before Time?
Might be a brontosaurus.
Yeah, well, they call them long necks in the movie, but it's a brontosaurus.
Okay, Brontosaurus.
I think you broke Evie's heart for a minute. Because she has a correct answer for that one usually.
My kids are really into dinosaurs, but we all just call them dinosaurs.
Ollie's into dinosaurs too, and I mostly go, oh, look at that one. It eats meat. That one likes plants. So,
No.
All right, next one. And this one is going to be very hard for you to keep as a rapid fire.
Okay.
If you could go back in time to any year, what would you travel to? What year? I broke the Kennedy.
1840.
All right, and if you want to find out why, you should be befriending Kennedy on Discord so you can send her a message to ask.
Yes, or joining my Facebook group where you can literally ask me anything at any time, because that's my favorite place to hang out.
Or subscribing to her monthly newsletter.
Yes. It's actually not monthly. It's only when I'm releasing stuff, but that ends up being kind of monthly.
Yeah, especially with the audiobooks. So go do that when we're done. All right, Brian?
What's the most daring thing you've ever done?
Daring?
Yes. Did I break the Kennedy?
I've just done a lot of daring things.
Yeah. You're lovely, but you're also not as reserved as you seem. You do have a lot of risk-taking stuff.
I just, well, that would be an explanation. I think that my biggest risk that I've ever taken was probably bungee jumping over the Yangtze River in China.
Oh.
It looks sketch. I was 14, I was alone in China, and I just bungee jumped right off the edge of a bridge, and it was like, is this safe? Do you guys have a permit? And it was just some guy who didn't speak English. He was like, I'm gonna throw you off, and I lived, so here I am.
All right, so yeah, go to the Facebook group and ask the actual explanations for these, because Kennedy knows how to live for sure. Next one. Are you a clean or a messy person?
I'm clean, but I'm cluttered.
Hey, Brian.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
I think I like chocolate chip cookie dough best.
Ooh, that's my favorite.
What would you use to survive the zombie apocalypse?
Or like weapon-wise?
Well, anything can be a weapon, really.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to use the landscape to survive the zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
I feel like there are places where you're like way more likely to live than others.
That's fair. What food have you never eaten but would really like to try?
So many of those things on like the cooking competition shows like Iron Chef, and they're like, we're gonna make lobster in 4 different amazing ways, and then the judges get to eat them slowly and talk about how delicious they are. I feel like I would like to try any of those.
All right. Brian.
As a child, what did you think would be awesome about being an adult that is not awesome?
Gosh, I don't even know. I don't think I ever wanted to grow up. Maybe, I think maybe curtains. I used to think that I would have really cool curtains, but it turns out curtains are really expensive. Same with blinds, just like window adornments. What the heck is that about? Like this set of blinds, $300. Um, yeah, that's dumb. I always thought that curtains were lovely, and I looked forward to picking my own out, but it turns out curtains are dumb.
Yeah. And then when you buy window draperies or blinds, children or pets immediately destroy them. So you're like, what the hell was the point anyway?
Yeah, I get all of mine from thrift shops. You know, some old lady died, I'm gonna take her curtains.
Sheets make great curtains. You can sew them. Anyway, do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
I remember the ghost tour. There's good stories there if you want to hear about Kennedy's past with ghosts.
I was just going to bring that up.
I believe in ghosts, and I'm not necessarily afraid of ghosts, but I have a healthy respect for giving ghosts space.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brian, last one.
I don't think I have a last one.
He didn't.
You had inanimate object.
You go ahead.
It was Brian's question. It was, what inanimate object would be the most annoying if it played loud, upbeat music while being used?
The microwave. Use the microwave all the time. If that played annoying music, like usually a child's on my hip screaming for whatever needs to come out of the microwave, and you're staring at it going 30 seconds. It's never taken so long ever before. And if it also played music, I'd probably have a nervous breakdown.
And like when you have to heat something up in the middle of the night when everyone else is sleeping but you're starving.
Yes.
Ruin the house up.
Yeah. Or like you're heating up your heat pack to put in by your feet before you go to sleep, and everybody else has been asleep for hours, and then it just starts like singing something from probably Queen. I don't know.
We are the champions.
Yeah. Or like, what's that one? It's like, he's a small town boy, you know, like whatever that one
Journey.
Journey.
Yes, Journey.
If I never hear that song again, it'll be too soon.
No.
Yeah, no, you're not. You will not besmirch that name, all right? Because that song is a fucking masterpiece, and you need to take that back right now.
It is a masterpiece.
I don't like anything.
It is a masterpiece, but every fucking time I put on Classic Rewind on Sirius, they play that fucking song.
Yeah, because it's a fucking masterpiece. That's what karaoke songs.
There are other songs in the entire history of rock and roll.
I'm questioning our friendship.
Listen, around here you learn that song at like 3 years old because Detroit is in the song. It's a part of our culture,
yes,
okay?
I understand that. But, you know, they can play Bob Seger, they can play Glenn Frey, you know, they can play other Detroit people.
When I think of Detroit, I think of Motown.
Yes.
I immediately think of like the Jackson 5 and nobody else.
Oh, ABC plays all the time too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Easy as 1, 2, 3.
This is your last chance to enter the giveaway. Drop the pirate flag in the comments, and you will be entered for a chance to win the lovely Sprayed Edge set.
Then somebody needs to give me your address so I can ship it off.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you didn't want it, I'm just kidding. Oh, look at all those.
Sam's gonna join the giveaway.
Kennedy, look at your chat, man. There's like 1 million pirate flags.
I don't know how to get to the chat.
There should be a button. It looks like a little chat bubble at the bottom.
Oh.
Hey, look at that.
Look at all those flags.
Look at you guys. Hello. Wow.
All right.
There's a bunch of you.
So, before we sign off, do you want to tell us about any events you have coming up this year?
Sure. I'm going to be at Sinful Signings in July in Roanoke, Virginia. There's still a few tickets left to that, and you should all try to be there because it's a ballroom full of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. It's so much fun. I've been to a lot of events. By far the best one there. They're all going to be here. I am going to the Tennessee LitCon, which is going to be here in Middle Tennessee. And that's in August, I think. Yeah. And then I'm going to Booked in Chaos in November.
Ooh.
And I'm trying really hard to convince myself that I don't need to go to Books and Bourbon in Kentucky, but I might fail.
I was going to say you need to stop doing that. It's fine. It's peer pressure, okay?
Yeah, I'm being peer pressured, but like I have a like if I tell my mom one more thing, she's gonna move away and not watch my kids anymore.
So what you're saying is if you come to Books and Bourbon, everyone in this chat needs to come too so that Kennedy can pay her bills because her mom's going to disown her and she needs a babysitter.
Who wants to watch my
you could always bring the children. You know, between like all the 100 authors who are going to be there, I mean, somebody can watch them.
Yeah.
Just put together a daycare corner. It's fine.
Yeah. You know, we'll bring some blocks and whatever. You know, like the foamy exercise mat thingy that you put together. Yeah.
Yeah, that you don't have children, do you, Brian?
I don't. I know.
Yeah.
I've got like an 8-foot by 6-foot playpen. We can fill it with bouncy balls from like Chuck E. Cheese, you know, the little ball pit balls, and be fine.
That'll be fine.
No, because all of us would be in that ball pit, and the kids will be like, "I thought that was for me."
Yeah.
Ball pit. Anyway.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like us to know?
That the best place to talk to me one-on-one personally is going to be to send me messages. Don't be shy. You can find me on my Facebook group is usually the best place to find me on Facebook, which is Kennedy Sutton Silver Locket Crew. And I'm going to post all of my like excerpts and things that I'm working on, and also funny memes and a couple other like fun historical facts that I run across there. I'm also on TikTok, though that feels really weird these days. And I'm trying to build up my Threads and my Blue Sky account. But really just don't be a stranger. I love chatting with people, especially about my books. I'll never shut up. So, yeah.
Which is good, because it makes for a fun interview.
Yes.
Ooh, look at that wheel. You got quite a few people on there.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people. Hi, Morticia. This is okay.
Your cat's gonna help.
Alright, are you ready, guys?
Let's see who won.
Let's see who does it. And again, you need to be able to contact Kennedy. So please follow them. Ooh. Oh. Teriyaki.
Teriyaki got it.
Congratulations. Double the M, double the awesome.
Yeah, make sure that you follow Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way she can get your information.
And we're just going to real quick run through some Friday Night Writes things. So again, we're really happy that you joined us here, Kennedy. Thank you so much. We've all had a wonderful time despite the disorganized chaos on our end. We apologize.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Chaos is kind of, it wouldn't be a show without chaos, right?
That's accurate. That's accurate. But just so you know, next week we are going to have the amazing Jennifer Saviano here with us in Discord, so you'll want to come back for that one. She writes some amazing motorcycle romance with witchy vibes, and I absolutely love it. It's the only MC romance I've ever read, if that tells you anything at all. And then this episode will be on YouTube tomorrow, so we can get more eyes on Kennedy Sutton. If you have not, Evie has been dropping their links in the comment section here so you can go to all the places and do all things Kennedy. And if you don't pick up one of these books from the Etsy shop, you will be sad. Or at least read it on Zon, because they are so good. You'll be sad anyway, but you'll be happy that you're sad. Friday Night Writes currently taking interest applications for the interview and the anthology. The anthology interest form closes at the end of the month. The anthology is called See Me As I Am. It focuses on invisible disabilities, mental and physical, and we will be putting that out over the summer. We will have a cover reveal coming soon. We want to try to utilize TikTok for that before it's gone, because that's where we have the most people following us. So if you want to be a part of that, just let us know. But yeah, Friday Night Writes is going to stay here in Discord for the most part. We will have to advertise on other platforms, but this is where the lives are being recorded. If you want to invite people to this server, wouldn't break our hearts either, because we can get more eyes and ears on our amazing authors, and we really, really love supporting this community. So thank you for joining us here tonight. If you have any
real
questions,
quick, Kennedy, Little Sam Teriyaki wants to know the best place to reach you.
You can send me an email at authorkennedysutton@gmail.com.
And I was going to suggest too, if you have any questions about the show or about Kennedy, we do have a previous guests channel here in Discord too. And Kennedy, you're allowed to post anything you want. So anything you want us to know about there too. But it's all about community, and we want to make the community bigger. So definitely reach out.
All right. And if any of you decide to go to my Etsy shop and buy signed copies, you can use the code Happy Sailing and get 20% off at any time. It's just.
Ooh. And you didn't even have to call them a good girl. All right, thank you so much, Kennedy. We ran a little bit past 10. We apologize for that, but it has been absolutely lovely having you on. It's only 9 where you are, I forget. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great, and we will get this up on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.